lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they war. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries, lie to your face, fight and die, 'cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slide, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. See their shit, force a bear, fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries, lie to your face, fight and die, 'cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On UCY.TV, best little network on the freaking planet. Anyways, where did I put that? And then I'll go find it, and then we'll talk about it for a bit. I have paid, let me think how much attention I've paid to the Paris climate talks so far, and the answer to that is none. So I'm going to take a look at it today, where the lunatics have gathered. So this is, what's the date on this? This is supposed to be an update. I think this, yesterday, December the 5th. So it's a nice, if you want to stay on top of this, I'll stick this in the chat. And it's the Paris Climate Talks, the latest updates on COP21, the 12 days that will decide Earth's future, like the 12 days of Christmas, kind of thing. And on the first day of the climate talks, they give you carbon tax. You guys can work out the rest of the song. But that's what's going on there. So I'm just going to stuff this down here in the chat. It's absolutely freaking ludicrous what's going on. And I suppose we need to pay some attention to this because they're saving the planet for you and I. How damned good a deal is that? I mean, these people really care about you. Anyways, the 12 days will decide Earth's future. Read this first, the guide to the COP21. I may look at it after. The goal, anyways, is a new global climate treaty involving all nations that would enter force in the year 2020. Isn't there a song about 2020? Didn't David Bowie do us? What was that 2020 song? There was a 2020 song. If somebody remembers that, stick it in the chat, will you? In the year 2021, I thought there was a song at some point that had something to do with 2020. And help the world avoid the worst consequences of man-made global warming. So they're not making, they've changed this again, okay? It was man-made global warming. Then they changed it to climate change. Now they're using the term man-made global warming again. So it's not just climate change anymore. You are responsible. Okay, just like they said in in the Club of Rome. Therefore, humanity itself is the enemy. You, my friends, are the enemy. You, the commoners, are the enemy. There are obviously way too many of you on this planet causing man-made global warming. And I find this curious because they switch out these terms man and human just the same way they switch out the terms legal and law. Man and human have nothing whatsoever to do with each other, and just like legal and law have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with each other. So they're interchanging these words using deceptions, but that's what they are. They're deceivers. This guide to COP21 lays out where each country stands and what these 12 days mean for you. Where to watch online, there are 2 live streams for COP21, both in English and French. Here is the plenary 1 stream, and here is number 2 stream. Got links to them. Both will broadcast live during the talks. Well, here's the latest. This is so bizarre, man. This is like doing Saturday Night Live, for crying out loud. Negotiators adopt a draft deal. Now it's up to the ministers. That goes back to church, which goes back to Rome, which goes back to the Pope, who says he's a vicar of Christ, and therefore what he says is law. And if he says you're the one that is destroying the planet, then, well, you're the one that's destroying the planet. And the scientists, of course, are the new priests of the Church of Rome and do the bidding of it. And because the Church of Rome, the Vatican, the Pope, is a complete and total deception, so are the scientists a complete and total deception. Negotiators adopted a draft climate agreement on Saturday that brings the world one step closer to a new climate treaty. However, the draft still contains numerous items that will have to be resolved by environment and foreign ministers who are now arriving in Paris from around the world. Here they come. They've set it up. Now they're going to bring in the foreign ministers and the environment ministers to lay what they've come up with in front of those ministers, put a gun to their head, and say, sign here. The goal set out by the French foreign minister, who is chairing the talks, is to reach an agreement by the end of the day on Wednesday, with adoption of the final text by Friday. Such a treaty, it is hoped, would pave the way for curbing global warming and would set the world on course to phase out fossil fuels in favor of renewable energy technologies. Well, if you read the IEA reports from many, many years ago, when they were just starting to bring this renewable energy crap to the forefront and have your ministers jam it down your throat and drive your hydro bills right through the frickin' ceiling, says specifically that there are 2 purposes for renewable energies. One is cash flow, and the other is the creation of carbon credits. That nowhere did it say in those IE reports anything whatsoever about saving the damned environment, because it's never about the environment. Never, ever, ever was it about the environment. The only place the environment comes into play is it was chosen as the mechanism, which is a global problem that they required that could only be solved at the global level in order to hand them world government. That is what environment is about, nothing more. However, there are many unresolved terms in the text that will be subject of intense debate starting on Monday. U.S. Secretary of State John, I'm a treasonous dog, Kerry, will lead the U.S. delegation during these portions of the talks. Now, Christine Figueres, who's running this show, who is a good buddy of the supposed late Morris Strong. I guess this is a tweet that she put out. Yeah, it looks like a tweet. She's a twit, so she ought to have Twitter. One more step in writing of history. Adopts the draft Paris outcome and forwards it to COP21 for finalizing. Now, this is the same broad who's on film on YouTube. I suppose you can punch in her name, Christina Figueres, and just punch in her name and depopulation, I suppose, and you're going to come up with a video where she says the biggest problem we have right now, or something to this effect, is population. Okay, that's the problem. You are the problem. They have declared war upon the people. Okay, and like I keep saying, this is a psychological war, but it's a war nonetheless. They've used every scam that they own, psychological scam that they own, and they own the media, and they own the schools, and they own the churches. They own the politicians, and use all of those things that they control to psychologically get you to believe something that is absolutely not true. So they can have their way with you. Now, once these treaties are signed and it is man-made global warming, remember that. It says that again. Haven't used that term for a dog's age. It was climate change only, climate change. But no, now the accusation is back, and it is man-made global warming. That is you. Okay, when they change it to climate change, well, climate always changes. That is a climatic norm. Normal climate is changing constantly, always, every moment, every second of every day. That's climate change. So they tried to smooth that out and get away from this man-made global warming for a considerable period of time, but now that they're coming for your jugular, they bring that back. And it's an accusation that you and you and you and you and you and you and you are responsible for this so-called extreme climate change. You made it. Man-made global warming. And so that is an absolute accusation and threat. That's an in-your-face threat from this group of people. Now, if you haven't watched, you're listening to the show for the first time, or you haven't watched the video yet, then watch the damn thing. Okay, and it's called Survival of Spaceship Earth. And it was released just prior to the 72 Stockholm Conference on Human Environment, headed by Morris Strong, Rockefeller's butt boy, which brought all of these nations together, and every crackpot on the planet, and the same crackpots are still at it today. Some have died, some have been replaced, but it's the same crackpot outfit that is threatening you. They've been threatening you forever. But in that video, they're very specific about what the problem is. And the world is out of balance. And that's, I believe they use those same terms maybe in Our Common Future. I read it, but it's a long time ago. But it's all about keeping Earth in balance. And obviously the Earth is out of balance because you, my friend, are causing climate change. Okay? The very fact that you exist on this planet, well, you're hurting the planet. You're destroying the possible future of those who come after you because the world is out of balance. There are too many people on the planet for the amount of finite resources, as they like to describe them as, and therefore the world is completely out of whack. Our job is to balance the world, okay, so that we all have a common future and that we leave stuff left for those who come after us. Okay, so the only possible way to put the Earth back in balance is to get rid of a gutload of us useless eaters, as has been described by several different people. I think Kissinger was one of them that used the term useless eaters. And these crackpots who want to get rid of the useless eaters are using your local government, which they describe as useful idiots, to implement their agendas. So we got useless eaters and useful idiots. And it's the useful idiots, your ministers and your foreign affairs ministers, who are going to sign your so-called country, your so-called nation, onto this garbage. And it was the crackpots who created the UN, and it was the crackpots that created Israel. And that's the only reason we had World War II and World War I. That is the only reason those two wars kicked up. And they were used as mechanisms again. They like these mechanisms. And create all kinds of chaos, and out of this chaos will come order, the order that they wish. Now, I haven't read the Bible, but I got to look this stuff up. My understanding is that God kicked the Jews out of Israel, told them to take a hike, scattered them around, and that they were not to have a nation. Okay. And so World War II and World War I, it's just that the Zionists didn't like the location that was offered during World War I, so they turned the offer down, and the Americans didn't sign on to the League of Nations, so kick it up again. And this time we got the United Nations and the State of Israel. And if you look at Palestine today, from where it was before this Zionist state was created, you will see there's very little left of Palestine. And they want Jerusalem, and then they are going to have their world government. Okay, the United Nations and Israel together are intricate partners in all of this. So if you're one of these Christian Israel supporters, well, I don't want to be rude, but you're an idiot. Okay, you're an absolute idiot. There is nothing good about the state of Israel. And there's nothing good about the United Nations. Those are two of the most evil bodies. That's where the evil people congregate. This is who the evil people on the planet work for. Okay? In order to take the rest of us down hard. And they like suffering. They enjoy to watch people suffer. In that movie, Survival of Spaceship Earth, there was scientists that are talking about, that man can live in such miserable conditions. They can survive almost anything. But then the question is it worth them surviving under these conditions? So they just, they make the conditions bad, and then they have every right to euthanize you in order to put you out of your frickin' misery because you won't die on your own. So these are extremely, extremely evil people. And, the Pope is not the vicar of Christ, okay? If the Pope is the vicar of anything, he's the vicar of Satan, the devil, Lucifer. I mean, the new telescope the Vatican got, did they call it Lord? Did they call it God? No, they called it Lucifer. Okay, now if you look at the stupid cross that the Pope hauled around with him, it's bent. If you look up the word bent, well, let's just go look it up real quick before I continue on this. Bent or crooked. Bent. Bent, noun 1, mental inclination, 1570s, probably from earlier literal sense, condition of being deflected or turned. That is like a turnee, turned from the original Lord to a different Lord, okay? So this ain't the vicar of Christ. Bent, not straight, okay? meaning turned or inclined in some direction, is from 1530s, probably as a translation, meaning directed in a course. Yada, yada, yada. Bent. Hell bent. Well, that's what they are. They're hell bent. These people at the UN are absolutely hell bent on taking us down. So it's a war. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. We are at war, and we just have to come to terms with that. But again, it's a psychological war. So, I'm finding myself more and more now, although I've been doing this ever since I got on air, and I thought it was starting to settle down a little bit, but now it seems to be starting to rage again. When I first started doing these online shows, a lot of Americans this was after 9/11, and people were in a bad mood, and, they're talking about FEMA camps and this and that and the other thing, and they're getting locked and loaded and getting their go bags out and their survival kits out and buying their seed and all this kind of stuff. This is years ago. But the attitude was they want to have a shoot 'em up. And I've been telling people forever, it seems, that that ain't going to win it, folks. That is not what's going to win it. It's a psychological war, so we have to use psychology. And there is no more powerful bit of psychology than the word no. And see, they can write and do all the treaties they want. And the fact is that your government, your so-called government officials, have no authority whatsoever to be running around to foreign countries signing agreements with them, especially the UN, which is this entity that really doesn't even exist. I mean, you got the headquarters in New York, okay, the European Union. So this is just something that these guys made up. It's like this world government is just a mental thing. They're just like D.C. and London City and the Vatican are made up stuff, which are not part of the countries in which they are located. The United Nations, which is the land given by the Rockefeller Foundation. I mean, come on. We just got to get our act together here and just simply say, no, you know what? We ain't going there. You can sign all the paperwork you want. You can do whatever you want, and we're not going to play ball with you. I don't want to hear people go, oh, my God, look what they've done now. We got to pay more taxes. What are we going to do? You're going to tell them to shove off. Shove off. We ain't paying your damn taxes, and if you continue to do this, and we'll just go to your town hall, and we'll vacate the damn place, and we'll take it over. And if you TV stations continue to shove this propaganda down our throat 24/7, then we'll just come on over and we'll take over the TV stations, because you know why? Because we, the people, own it all. There wouldn't be a TV station if people didn't build a TV station. Okay? We built everything that is on our lands, and everything that is on our lands that belongs to the people. Not some jackasses in expensive suits. Now we got to stop this laying down garbage and start standing up. And you don't need a gun to do it. Stand up, stick out your chest, and say, we get it. The answer is no. But we got to get to the local levels. I don't give a damn about John Kerry. I don't give a damn about the Prime Minister of France or President of France, whatever they call him over there. I don't give a damn about Obama. I don't give a damn about Justin Trudeau. They matter not. They only matter if we bow down to it. But then that's our fault, isn't it? You know, a lunatic told us we're going to have to pay a carbon tax every time we have a drink of water, every time we open our mouths, every time we breathe, every time we get in our vehicle, every time we try to warm our house. Well, we're stupid enough to put up with that, then I guess it is our fault. And silence is consent. Then these people have written down everything they've ever done to you or ever planned to do to you. They've written it all down. They said, well, we told you what we were doing. Well, yeah, I know you had to go and dig through a lot of paperwork to find it, and nobody on TV or in the rest of the media ever told you, nor did your teachers or your preachers or your politicians ever tell you what the hell we're up to, but we did write it down. And you didn't say anything. So obviously you're consenting to it. That's how these clowns operate. Anyways, most of the remaining disagreements are the same ones that divided negotiators in the first week of the talks, namely the difference between what developed countries will have to do compared to developing nation obligations under a new Paris Accord, which goes back to Morris Strong and Rockefeller and anything else in the UN, be it the WHO, be it the FAO, be it the International Monetary Fund, be it the World Bank, or any of these multitude of organizations that are connected to the United Nations. It's all about taking down the industrial West. So we're having some, divided negotiations on the difference between what the developed countries will have to do compared to what the developing nations' obligations are under the new Paris Accord. So it's absolute takedown. Okay, the money's going to leave the West, and it's going to the developing countries, who never developed because they weren't allowed to develop. Okay, because of the colonization and that. These are all resources of the corporation. Disputes continue as well regarding the legal matter of a deal, according to the AP. Apathetic peckerweeds, is that what that stands for? Well, it's Associated Press, same thing. China's chief negotiator, Su Wei, or is it Su Wei? Because it says S-U and then the second name is W-E-I, so it wouldn't really be Wei. So maybe he comes from a long line of hogs. China's chief negotiator, Su Wei, told reporters Saturday that all the provisions, starting from the preamble to the final clauses, would be legally binding. Not lawfully binding, legally binding. Okay, but as long as we are chained to the legal person, then we're bound. Okay, and that's what we got to do. We got to unshackle ourselves from this legal personhood bullcrap. They tell you it's man-made global warming, but then they tell you it's legally binding. Well, nothing legal binds itself to a man. Okay, it only can bind itself to the legal person. So who exactly caused this global warming? Man? But then you're going to make it. You're not binding the man. You're binding the legal person who is attached to the man. Same as the Queen. Elizabeth the woman is a separate entity from the Queen. Okay, one is real flesh and blood, and the other is a fictional idea. But while they are separate, they are also inseparable. Okay, indivisible. So they've welded this legal person to you, the man. And they've tried to enslave you that way. And that personhood, legal personhood, is nothing more than a ball and chain around your ankle. Okay, you are a slave. You are subject to. Well, you can't be subject to a fiction unless you allow yourself to be subject to a fiction. Anyways, this goes against, it says, the U.S. stance, since a binding agreement would have to be approved by the Republican-controlled Senate. But of course, they're both on the same side because it was George Bush Sr. who signed America onto Agenda 21, and it was Clinton who implemented it throughout every agency in the United States. So this idea of Republican and Democrat holds no water. They're both wings on the same frickin' bird, period. It was George Bush, actually, Sr., who said we will have a world government. Okay? So the idea that the Republicans are standing behind or standing in front or guarding the rights of the people of America is baloney. Okay? He was, after all, CEO of the corporation known as the United States, which has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with America or the people living on those lands. But I'm sure the media missed that part. Long-term decarbonization is on the table in Paris. A discussion in Paris regarding which temperature target to specify in a new UN climate treaty, 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, is not really about a specific temperature. Instead, it's about how significantly and quickly to decarbonize the global economy during the remaining years of this century. Christina Figueres, who chairs the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and is a complete and total nutcase, I put that in, told reporters on Friday that compromise language on a temperature target will be found. I do not think there is a lot of space to be able to find not just a language, but also a very important conceptual agreement, okay, of the fact that decarbonization needs to happen, that it needs to happen quickly, and that it needs to happen across the economy, she said. This is what we're talking about when we talk about 1.5 to 2 degrees. It's not a discussion about the temperatures. It's just a proxy. The discussion is about the decarbonization of the economy. So once again, they tell you that they were deceptive when all these scientists are running around, the IPCC and all the rest of these nutcases going, if we hit 2 degrees, the world will disintegrate. It's not about the temperature at all, she says. Well, wait a minute, you told us it was about 2 degrees. Well, that was just a conceptual thing, something that we decided to use, that we thought we could play well in the media. It's not really about temperature at all. It's actually about decarbonization. Oh, well, you didn't tell us that. Well, we didn't think it was important because we're liars, deceivers, and criminals. And that's who we are. Conceptual. It's a conceptual thing, she said, which is pertaining to mental conception. A collecting, gathering, conceiving, to conceive. So to conceive is to take seed into the womb, become pregnant. It is also, let's see. So they birthed or they born this concept. Meaning, take into the mind is from mid-14th century. Figurative sense also found the old French and Latin words related conceived and conceiving. So this is just something, everything that they're doing is just something that they conceived in their minds, okay? Then they born this idea. It's all fiction. It's like somebody sitting down to write a fictional book. They conceive the idea, and then they put it down on paper and make it real. Meaning that which is conceived in the mind, a general notion. Meaning that can be imagined, okay? So it goes on. So they had an idea. It's all it is, really, a concept, an idea. And then they worked on their idea, and how are we going to hoodwink everybody on the planet to believe what we're doing is real? And that's for propaganda, of course. Now, I don't understand this part of it. There's a picture here. It says, environmental activists protest during a visit to the Solutions COP21 exhibition at the Grand Palace in Paris on December the 4th, on the sidelines of the COP21 United Nations Conference on Climate Change. Now, I don't know what they're protesting about. I guess they're protesting they want a deal. But apparently protesters aren't allowed near the place. So again, it's what they did at the G20 here in Toronto. They used the protesters as a deflection, smoke and mirrors, if you will. So while what's actually going on in the meetings is more or less not paid much attention to compared to what they're showing you on the screen, which is the protests. Okay, and it was during the protests that at the G20 in Toronto, where Prime Minister Harper said that talking about the meeting, this is a loss of national sovereignty. Some people don't like it, but hey, it's a simple reality. And the same thing here. Okay, these talks here are a complete and total loss of what you thought your national sovereignty was. Okay, and that's exactly why the American people would not sign on to the League of Nations after the First World War, because it required giving up sovereignty, and they'd fought the War of Independence not that long before, and they still remembered why they fought, and the idea of giving up any ounce of sovereignty was not palatable to the people then. So this is the whole thing. This is global government in your face, man. And your so-called elected officials are doing this to you. They're handing you, all the people in your nation, over to a handful of psychopaths and sociopaths, that they should have their way with you. Now, that's kind of sounds like a breach of trust to me, and a breach of trust, if you look it up, equals treason. Okay? So your elected officials, your so-called elected officials, which aren't because you can't vote, again, only your legal person can vote, and that ain't you. You vote as a proxy for it, which makes it a corporate vote. And D.C. is a corporation separate from the lands known as America. And these lunatics rule your life. And now they're handing you over to the global nutcases that they can have their way with you. Now, if they determine that your nation is using too much water, guess what? You ain't getting any water. Okay? I think it was a guy from Nestle. People were going, well, water is a human right. Not really, says the guy from Nestle. Where the hell are you coming up with that? Okay? And besides, you're humans. That's an animal. It's not a man. A human is an animal, something that evolved from the great ape. Man did not evolve from the great ape. A human did. And you're animals, and we are men, and we rule the world, and we hang out with the Vicar of Christ, and whatever he says is law. And you humans are just animals, and God gave us dominion over the earth and the animals and the water and the air and the trees, and we will determine for you, the animals, how much water you actually get, what you live in, where you live, what you eat, how much you eat, yada, yada, yada. And if you die, or we decide to cull the population of humans because we have determined that you are a threat to the environment or the rest of the animals that live on the planet, then we have a duty to call you. And that's what we're up against. Anyways, as of Friday afternoon local time in Paris, a so-called bridging document contained 5 different versions of language that would specify goals for the middle of the to the end of this century. The business community and many governments are looking to Paris Agreement to send a signal to the world markets that the days of fossil fuel powered economy are ending, in order to spur a dramatic expansion in renewable energy technologies. Well, we know how that's worked out so well, so far, haven't we? And the beauty of renewable energy, besides it being completely intermittent, it is energy. I don't dispute that fact. It is energy, but energy is all around us. It's not about energy so much. Like I can get energy out of a potato. I can wrap a coil of copper around a nail and hit it with a hammer and get energy out of it. That is energy, but is it useful energy? That's the problem. Do they run the steel mills that produce the steel to build the turbine towers and the nacelles and all the gearing and everything that's in it? Do they use renewable energy to forge the steel? Of course not, because they can't get enough power to make steel out of renewable energy. There's a big difference between power and energy. Power is something that you can count on. Power is something that is not intermittent. Power is something that when you call on it, you get it, and you can get what you need out of it. Renewable energy is like, it's like the trickle-down economy, isn't it? Just call it trickle energy, if you will. So again, go watch the movie Soylent Green, man. That is so in your face, it's ridiculous. You don't have meat. You don't have hot water. You're living in super crowded conditions in the inner cities. You don't have electricity. You have a bicycle. I mean, I see these ads, right? You know, power your home with a bicycle. They put a little generator on a bicycle and you fire up a battery. And then you plug in a light bulb. This is what these climate talks are about. And the kicker, I mean, I almost fell over when I found out that, I guess most movies come from books, but when I found, I forget what the book was called. I think it was called Leave Room or something. And it was either Leave Room or Make Room, one of the two. And that is about population. And just like now in Switzerland, and it seems to be growing everywhere on the planet, assisted suicide spas, if you will, just like they had the same thing in Soylent Green. But what really didn't throw me so much as I went, oh, now I get it. Who wrote the foreword in the book that became the movie? Paul Ehrlich of The Population Bomb, who just happened to be one of the main speakers at the 72 conference on human environment in Stockholm, Sweden, which has happened to occur 2 years after the first day, Earth Day, which has happened to occur shortly after the movie starring Maurice Strong and David Rockefeller and Barbara Ward and what was her name, Margaret Mead, and some other folks in there. And one of the scientists in that movie actually said that as far as pollution is concerned, and this was in '72 that movie was made, narrated by Raymond Burr and another newscaster, was that the world is much cleaner today. It was never as polluted as it was during the Industrial Revolution. So the Earth is actually much cleaner than it was during the Industrial Revolution. But that doesn't seem to matter to these nutcases. They are determined that they are going to control everything and everybody on the planet to the most minute detail. And they now have the technologies to do so. And it is their intention to do so. So somewhere on this planet, we are going to have to clean these clowns off the lands and show the rest of the world that you don't need these people, that these people are a detriment, not a benefit to man. Anyways, one of the text proposals calls for achieving zero global greenhouse gas emissions by 2060 to 2080. Now, it started out, well, let me finish this sentence, while another sets a target of peaking global greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. Now, this is a scenario game, okay, and I really do encourage people to slide on over to the Rockefeller Foundation and look through some of the paperwork and maybe just punch in their search engines scenarios, because that's exactly what they do. They present scenarios. They always produce normally about 4 different scenarios, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, but most of the time it's 4 separate scenarios, none of which they conclude are right or wrong. They're simply scenarios. They're what ifs. What if we do this? What will the outcome be? And this is exactly what they always do, and this is exactly what's going on here. One of the text proposals, one of the scenarios, if you will, calls for achieving zero global greenhouse gas emissions by 2060 to 2080, while another scenario sets a target of peaking global greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. Same game, same outcome, a little different language, a little different scenario. It's always the same scenario, but worded a little bit different because they're always coming to the same outcome, which is problem, reaction, solution. They are always coming to their final solution, but they use little different scenarios. So pick one, but they're all the same. Determining which bracketed text makes it into the final agreement is not going to be easy. My sense that this is one of the toughest issues parties will address and will probably go late into the end game, said Jennifer Morgan of the World Resources Institute. Now you might want to look that up. 2 drafts are becoming one in a high-stakes edition of track changes. Considerable progress has been made in the last 24 hours when negotiators now working based off 2 texts in an effort to arrive at a relatively clean text by noon local time on Saturday. The first text is a 46-page document from co-chairs of a working group tasked with determining the draft agreement that will go to ministers, including U.S. Secretary of State John. My dad was a criminal, Kerry, for deliberation. I mean, go look up John Kerry's dad and his past. For deliberation beginning on Monday. The second is a 38-page document containing potential compromise language known as bridging proposals that would go into the chair's text. So the bridging proposals are basically what you call negotiation. If we can't get you to come here, then we'll negotiate and get you to go there, which is exactly the same place. Just a different road to get there. Lisa Friedman says, stern on 1.5 degrees Celsius. We haven't landed anywhere yet, but we hear the concern of those countries, and we think the concerns are legitimate. Somebody else, I don't know who she is, but another Twitter person. The job of negotiators on Friday is to perform a hotly contested round of track changes on the co-chair's text while grappling with extremely hot-button topics, including how developing countries would be compensated for the impacts of global warming and the possible inclusion of language specifying the goal of all countries to pursue the complete decarbonization of the global economy by the end of this century. As of Friday morning Eastern Time, there were 5 different options for decarbonization text. Another sticking point is a reference to 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degree Fahrenheit temperature target as opposed to a 2 degree Celsius target. Many poorer countries are pushing for a more ambitious target, while some countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, is pushing back against that. It would be good to be a bit further along than they are right now, said Jennifer Morgan of the World Resources Institute during a phone call with reporters. They're all working very hard to still get to an agreement next week, she said of climate negotiators. Morgan said the mood among country delegations is positive. What I continue to see is that the vast majority of countries are working in good faith for an agreement. This is so freaking ridiculous. Now, this decarbonization thing, I'm going to stop here for a second. This decarbonization thing started out, I think it was 20% that we would lower our CO2 emissions, and then the target went to 30, 40, 50, 60. And then I saw a clip from a TED Talk, which is total Looneyville. People say, "Oh, I really like TED Talks." What are you, an idiot? You don't know who these people are? Propaganda Central, man. But I saw a TED Talk there with your buddy and mine, Bill Gates, who, without, I probably wouldn't be doing this show today. But he was on a TED Talk explaining about 80% reduction, and then he landed at the 100% decarbonization. The 100% end of CO2 emissions is what he's proposing. That's what these people are proposing, which is what Gorbachev was proposing, and that is get rid of 95% of the people and you don't have an environmental problem anymore, do you? So the decarbonization and the carbon number on man, I think, is 666, I believe. So what are we going to get rid of? Man. Oops. I thought this was about climate. Well, no, not really. Never had anything to do with climate, folks. I mean, listen to these things. Another sticking point is reference to a 1.5 degrees Celsius or a 2 degree. Now, these people are sitting there sweating in their chairs. Oh, I don't know if I can agree to just 1.5. What if it goes to 2? What if it goes to 2? Oh, my God, what are we going to do? We got it week on 2 degrees. The scientists said 2 degrees. Didn't they say 2 degrees? Didn't they say at 2 degrees in 100 years, they scanned this out with their models, right? And in 100 years, at the end of this century, that if we hit 2 degrees, it's over. It's over. Holy crap, I can't sleep at night anymore, say the negotiators and the prime ministers and the ministers and the presidents. Can't sleep. We have the world in our hands. The future of the world is in our hands. What will we do? That's how ludicrous this is. Absolutely, completely ludicrous. It's even more ludicrous that the so-called media is not out there going, this is completely nuts. But then they are the prostitutes of the rich men. And if they don't spew out what they're told to spew out, well, you're out of a job. So December the 3rd, we'll back up here to December the 3rd. So I see as we go through this that they are progressing well now by the 5th. But on the 3rd, negotiators spent the day in small groups, working on issues such as how to finance climate adaptation efforts in developing countries, how at the end of the day in Paris it looks like little forward motion has taken place toward a clean, workable draft agreement by Saturday deadline set by French Foreign Minister and COP21 Chairman Laurent Fabius. Will he be a Fabian? I don't know. But the fact is that this is all, this is probably one of the reasons I haven't spent any attention looking at this yet, because these people are crazy. These are the same people that bombed the snot out of Iraq. These are the same people that bombed the snot out of Syria. These are the same people bombing the snot out of Afghanistan forever. These are the same people that took out Gaddafi, spreading their democracy around the world. These are the same crazy people. And now they wish to decarbonize the planet. Well, you decarbonize the planet, it's a lifeless rock. So these people are telling you exactly what they're up to. But the people don't see any of this for some oddball reason. What they're concerned about is, oh my God, are they going to put a tax on my carbon? I can't afford no more damn taxes. I know we got to save the planet, but Jesus, man, they're bankrupting their butts. It has nothing whatsoever to do with saving the planet. And if you want to save your butts, you better get up and stand up and stay and know. And you got to get to the local level. That's where this is being implemented. They're flying mayors in from all over the place. What the hell is a local city or municipal mayor doing in Paris at a climate change talks? To lend credence at the local level, to show that everyone is on board. Okay, your mayor, your council should be in jail. Your mayor and your council, your city planners, your CAOs, they're all schooled in implementing these UN agendas without telling the people at the local level what they're up to. Instead of telling them what they're up to, they promote walking trails, dog parks, splash pads, and so on and so forth, to make people feel good. Not ever telling them what the real plan is. And these people at the local level have got to be held responsible for what it is they're doing. And we got to get in their face. We got to get some really bright lights and shine it on them every freaking time they move. Okay, let me see what we got here on the 5th. We have a draft working plan. Now, how long is this damn thing? I'm sure the language is retarded. Oh, God. I may just look through a little wee bit of this and put the link in here. Let me see if we can find anything here. A draft agreement. The parties to this agreement being parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, hereafter referred to as the Convention, in pursuit of the objective of the Convention and being guided by its principles, including the principle of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in the light of different national circumstances, pursuant to the Durban Platform for Enhanced Action established by decision at 1CP.17 of the Conference of the Parties of the Convention at its 17th session, recognize the intrinsic relationship between climate change, poverty eradication, and equitable access to sustainable development, and reaffirming that responses to climate change should aim to meet the specific needs and concerns arising from the adverse impacts of response measures. taking account of specific needs of developing country parties, and especially those that are particularly vulnerable to climate-related events. Page, 6, taking account also of the specific needs and special situation of the least developed country, LDC parties, as set out in Article 4, Paragraph 9 of the Convention, the specific circumstances of small island developing states, SIDS, emphasizing the need to respond to the urgent threat of climate change on the basis of the best available scientific knowledge, in particular the assessment reports of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, noting that the largest share of historical global emissions of greenhouse gases has originated in developed countries, that per capita emissions in developing countries are still relatively low, and that the share of global emissions originating in developed countries will grow to meet their social and developmental needs. Recognizing that Paris should take action to address climate change in accordance with evolving economic and emissions trends will continue to evolve post-2020, emphasizing the importance of promoting, protecting, and respecting all human rights, the right to develop, the right to health, the rights of indigenous people, migrants, children, persons with disabilities, and people in vulnerable climate situations and under occupation, as well as promoting gender equality and empowerment of women, will take into account the needs of local communities, intergenerational equity concerns, and the integrity of ecosystems and of Mother Earth when taking action to address climate change. So it's not about climate change. Again, climate change being the mechanism. Okay? What the hell does climate change got to do with indigenous people, the right to health, migrants, children, persons, disabilities, and people in vulnerable climate situations, gender equality, and the empowerment of women and the needs of local communities have to do with climate change? Absolutely nothing. Climate change is simply a mechanism. And that was stated by Warburg at the 1950 Senate hearings. We need a mechanism. And the mechanism chosen was environment. Recognizing the fundamental, this is page 12, recognizing the fundamental priority of safeguarding food security and ending hunger and the particular vulnerabilities of food production systems, the adverse impacts of climate change. Also recognize the importance of the conservation enhancement as appropriate of sinks and reservoirs of greenhouse gases referred to in Article 4, Paragraph 1D of the Convention, including through internationally agreed approaches such as the REDD+ and the Joint Mitigation and Adaptation approach for integral and sustainable management of forests and their non-carbon co-benefits. Affirming the importance of education, training, public awareness, public participation, public access to information, cooperation at all levels on the matters addressed in this agreement, and recognizing the importance of engagements at all levels of government and various actors in accordance with respective national legislation or legislations of parties in addressing climate change. Have agreed as follows. For the purpose of this agreement, all definitions contained in Article 1 of the Convention apply. Article 2. The purpose of this agreement is to enhance the implementation of Convention and to achieve the objective of the Convention as stated in its Article 2 in order to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change. Parties agree to take urgent action and enhance cooperation and support so as to hold the increase in the global average of temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius or well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by ensuring deep reductions in global greenhouse gas net emissions, to increase their ability to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change and to effectively respond to the impacts of the implementation of response measures and to loss and damage, to pursue a transformation towards sustainable development that fosters climate resilient and low greenhouse gas emission societies and economies, and that does not threaten food production and distribution. Number 2, this agreement shall be implemented on the basis of equity and science and in accordance with the principle of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in the light of different national circumstances and on the basis of respect for human rights and the promotion of gender equality and the rights of people under occupation. Now, I guess if we worked really hard, because I keep seeing this come up, gender equality all the time, is it possible that gender inequality is actually causing climate change? Is that possible? I mean, it just keeps coming up. Article 2, General. All parties shall regularly prepare, communicate, and implement intended nationally determined contributions, components on mitigation and adaptation undertaking and adaptation planning and means of implementation towards achieving the purpose of this agreement as set out in Article 2 on the convention. Objective of the convention is set out in its Article 2 in accordance with Article 4 of the Convention, in accordance with the provisions of this agreement, including specific provisions related to the mitigation and adaptation and means of implementation. Each party's intended nationally determined contribution will represent a progression in the light of parties' differentiated responsibilities and commitments under the Convention. The extent to which developing country parties will effectively implement this agreement will depend on the effective implementation by developed country parties of their commitments on the provision of finance, technology development, and transfer and capacity building. Okay, so if you're in the West, you're going to start looking like the poor nations in the East. Pretty damn fast. As they talk about eradicating poverty, on the one hand, which is a complete load of bunk, because those in poverty were put there and held there in poverty by these same clowns that are writing up these agreements. Okay, so it's about, and they brought this up. They brought this up in that movie, Survival of Spaceship Earth, before the convention or the Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm in '72. Barbara Ward was rattling on about how we have to pay for those poor countries in the East. It's our responsibility. GDP is going to pay for this. And who creates GDP? You do. Who's going to pay for this? You are. How's your life going to be? Going downhill fast, folks. Going downhill fast. And who's implementing all this crap? Your local level. Just like when they signed us on in 1992 to the Agenda 21 program. Okay, where was it actually being implemented? It was being implemented at the local level. Okay, Agenda 21 has been completely implemented now. Okay, and it's funny. It almost makes me smile now. People say, stop Agenda 21. Well, it's already been implemented. It's already done. So now we get on to the next stage. 9/11 was an inside job. Well, yeah, that wasn't hard to figure out. I mean, NATO stood down. Any questions? So what all this debate was about is beyond me. It's quite obvious what it was. You don't have to debate the subject for 100 years. And this is what happens. While everybody's debating stuff, they just keep moving forward. We never catch up to them. We got to get ahead of them. Okay? If the bank robbers left town 10 minutes before you did, or half an hour before the posse's ready, and the posse stands around for another half day talking about the incident that happened at the bank, and now we're going to take the posse and go catch the robbers. You know what your odds on catching robbers are? Next to zero. They keep moving. They already got a head start on you. So if you can't figure out how to head them off at the pass, you're going to be chasing forever. You ain't never going to catch up to them. And they're going to do you. Going to do you good. Anyways, the collective, this is Article 3, the collective long-term goal. I just love reading UN shit, man. I haven't read any for a while. It's so contradictory to itself. Parties collectively, cooperatively aim to reach the global temperature goal referred to in Article 2 through a peaking of global greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. Recognize that peaking requires deeper cuts of emissions of developed countries and will be longer for developing countries. Okay? Rapid reductions thereafter in accordance with best available science. It doesn't have to be real, it just has to be available science. As Suzuki said at a talk he gave, I think it was in Seattle many, many years ago, to the student body there, he said that, what you believe today as scientists, you will probably find out was completely wrong in 20 years, just as I did as a young scientist, found out things that we believed or were told to believe was actually total bunk. So this is how science works. Science is the new priesthood. Okay? And you won't find out they've been wrong until after the damage is done. Okay, rapid reductions thereafter in accordance with the best available science to at least a X bracket minus Y% reduction in global greenhouse gas emissions, CO2e, compared to 20XX levels by 2050, achieving zero global greenhouse gas emissions by 2060 to 2080. A long-term low emissions transformation toward climate neutrality, decarbonization over the course of this century as soon as possible after mid-century. Equitable distribution of global carbon budget based on historical responsibilities and climate justice. It's going into the legal world, okay? You're going to have your ass hauled into court. They have been so busy for so many years putting together the legal framework of CO2 emissions, carbon, and sustainable development, climate change. And it's all made up in the mind, all of these things, but you're going to have your ass hauled into court. On the basis, climate justice on the basis of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in the context of sustainable development and eradication of poverty, while ensuring that food security, production, and distribution is not threatened, informed by the best, again, available science. To achieve this, policies and measures take into account different socioeconomic contexts, be comprehensive, cover all relevant sources, sinks and reservoirs of greenhouse gases, and adaptation and compromise of all economic sectors for, in brackets, developed countries. Individual efforts. Each party shall regularly prepare, communicate, and maintain successive and should, other, take appropriate domestic measures, have in place, identify, and pursue, implement domestic laws, nationally determined policies, and or other measures designed to implement, achieve, carry out that support implementation of its whatever responsibility. So this hasn't changed much. It really hasn't changed since the beginning. It is all the fault of the industrialized countries. And that's exactly the language that was used at the 72 Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm. It is the West that is the problem. It has always been the West that is the problem. And the job is to crush the West. And they've done this by setting up the bureaucracies, by amalgamating all the media. The documents I had from the UN, from Robert Mueller, was how they infiltrated the churches to start moving their environment agenda. They came up with this, basically the mechanism they were looking for, they found shortly after 1950, because I know this because in 1958 they came out with that film On-Chain Goddess, which was Gaia, which is all of this is, Mother Earth nonsense, and that 58 movie was about CO2 emissions. And, we've heard different things over the years from CO2 will cause a climate ice age or climate warming, whatever the temperature happened to be at the time, was blamed on CO2 emissions. And the same thing today, they're still doing it. They're saying that climate change is, something that varies off the climatic norms. So, places could get warmer and drier, or they could get colder and wetter. But whatever happens in the climate is because of CO2 emissions. So if it gets warmer and drier, that's CO2 emissions. And if it gets colder and wetter, well, that too is because of CO2 emissions. And that's the message, okay? And again, it has nothing whatsoever to do with climate, never did, never will. It is simply the mechanism that was chosen to drive everybody into poverty, to move all of the resources into the hands of a very, very, very tiny group of crazy people, and that they will administer to us what they feel is adequate. So when Stalin starved out the farmers in the Ukraine and Russia, that's what they're going to do. They're going to start starving people out. Where are you going to get real food? And that goes again to you can go back to Soylent Green. On the whole planet at that time, it was only 2 companies that controlled all the food resources on the planet. So they can pull the plug on you anytime they want. They can poison your food supply anytime they want. They can withhold the food supply anytime they want. Same thing for water, same thing for electricity. Now, I'm not trying to be a downer on this. I'm just trying to be a realist. And we need to step up to the plate. Most definitely need to step up to the plate. Let's see. What else we got in this damn thing? Now, I'm not even a quarter way down this page, but I've read so many of these stupid UN documents over the years. This is just part and parcel of the same kind of nonsense. Developed country parties should continue to take the lead. Option 1, support moved up. Option 1, okay, so support for this is moved up. Developed country parties and other developed parties included in Annex 2 to the convention and other parties with the capacity to do so shall provide new and additional financial resources, technology transfer, and capacity building to meet the agreed full cost incurred by developing country parties in complying with their obligations under this article. Developing country parties are eligible for support in the implementation of this article. And this is the same language that was used in 72 in Stockholm. This is the same damn language. I have somewhere, I don't know if it's on my YouTube or where, but it's available. You can just punch in, UN Stockholm 1972. There's a few videos out there from that time, and you really need to dig them out and watch them, because this is the exact same language that was used then. It's all about the West. It's everything on the planet is the fault of the West, and the West must pay. And that's been the whole thing all the way down the road. And there's some ludicrous people making statements in those clips from 72. Just ludicrous statements. But nothing more ludicrous than the guys that put on the convention who starred. They actually put their name down as actors. Morris Strong, actor. Margaret Mead, actor. Barbara Ward, actor. David Rockefeller, actor. Rene Dubois, actor. Okay? It's a sick movie we're living in. You know? And it's ridiculous. Same thing. I mean, this is 2015. That Convention on Human Environment was 1972. And this is 2015. That's how long these clowns have been working on. I mean, they're working on it a lot longer than that. They were working on it before World War I. But as far as the more modern push, they've been working on this a long time. And they never got off their core goal in the beginning. And that goes back to Warburg. We will have a world government by consent or by conquest. This is all about getting the people in the West to consent to this. Okay? It's okay to go bomb everybody in the Middle East and Africa or wherever it is they want to bomb people. I mean, Gaddafi was a total in-your-face takedown of a country that didn't want to get involved in this nonsense, and either by conquest or by consent or by conquest. So if you don't consent, we're going to bomb this living snot out of you, and say we're spreading democracy. But how do we bomb the already so-called democratic countries? That doesn't make any sense. And that's why they're applying this psychological warfare on the West, okay, to get them to consent, because it's almost impossible to make a bombing, bombing raids. I mean, they do a lot of false flags, but this idea of actual bombing raids, sorties in North America doesn't really fly with anybody. So they have to get you to consent to what they're doing. And that's what the job of the media, the education system, the political system, the religious systems are all involved in, getting you to consent to your actual takedown without a whimper. That's really sad that we could be sucked into something like that. Anyways, let's see what else. To the extent to which developing country parties will effectively implement their commitments will depend on the effective implementation by developed country parties of their commitments related to financial resource transfers of technology and capacity building. So we're supposed to take the money and take it over to developing countries and build their countries up while we tear our countries down. Duh. This is progression. This is under ambition. Each party's successful, whatever, shall, should, will represent a progression beyond the party's previous efforts and reflect its highest possible ambition based on common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities in the light of different national circumstances, the best available science, again, based on provision of finance, technology, and capacity building to developing countries. Features. This is really bad stuff. Now, they're going to sign this. I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to get signed this time around. They've been working on this a very, very long time. And as I look into France, the history of France, I can see why they're having this meeting in France. The French Constitution is basically, or after the revolution, is basically the basis for the UN human rights. And if you look at the history of France, it is where the word terrorism originated from, because it was the French government who was terrorizing their people. And there's so many other interesting things about France, and one of them is the communes. There's like, I forget, 36,000 communes in Paris or something, or in France. But they're the lowest level. Okay, it's like your town or your municipal government, but they're very small, these things. And if you look at Rockefeller and Strom in particular, again, when they set that thing up, and I can't remember what it was called, it was in India. They set up a commune in India, which while on the actual lands of India, it is not part of India. It's like D.C. and the Vatican and London City, and set up as a commune. Where nobody owns everything. Everybody owns everything, and everybody owns nothing kind of attitude. And you say, well, then who's running this show? And then it says, well, there's a trust set up. Okay, and that's the whole idea here, is the communal world where everyone is the same and everyone shares everything. And but these guys at these conventions, the UN a-holes and the politicians and the backroom boys that are running this show, they are the trust. They are the trust. And so some people call it communitarianism, but it's all based on the idea of commune. But these guys rise to the top, and they are the trust of the commune. They decide who does what. They decide what is adequate housing. They decide what is adequate food. They decide what is adequate education, and so on and so forth. And all will praise Mother Earth is the game. And if you don't, well, did we tell you we're decarbonizing? Okay, which isn't different from the influx of the Islamic migrants. Okay, that anyone who doesn't praise Allah or Allah is an infidel. Okay, and the Muslims are just being used to shake things up. They're as stupid as a box of rocks. They're as dumb as the damn Christians. They don't get what's going on. But the final solution for, I guess, the Zionists is to get their state of Israel and control the world, to have a world state, and which they're not supposed to have. And so you're going to bow down to Mother Earth, or you can look at it from the other angle. Who the hell supposedly got kicked out of heaven and supposedly said that he would destroy what the Creator created, which if you look around, that's exactly what's going on. So now, where we're sitting at here now is somebody's going to win this. Because this is a war. And there's always a victor in a war. And this is, make no mistake about it, this is a global war that is taking place right in front of your friggin' eyes. And somebody's going to be the victor. It's either going to be the people or it's going to be this small group of lunatics. So what we're looking at this point in time, my friends, is another 1,000 years of tyranny, where we shake the tyranny off our backs. And somebody's going to win this. And the deceptions and the tyranny that you've lived under all your life is going to look like a picnic compared to the tyranny that they want to lay on your backs now. And somebody's going to win this. And I suggest it be us. Because there is no future if we don't win. I mean, what does it take? You got all these lunatics blaming you for man-made global warming. You did it. You did it. Well, you didn't do jack, did you? Okay? You know, you were born and you're living your life. And now this small group of people are sticking their finger in your face, accusing you of something that you didn't have nothing to do with because it doesn't even exist. And you better not be willing to take that laying down. And we got to stand up and say no. And I do believe that that is the answer. We just simply, these are our lands. And we ain't putting up with this crap. You're not going to have us working and all the money you've stolen from us over the years from our labor through taxes and fees and nonsense in this legal system has all been to take us to a position that is going to destroy us. We ain't giving you any more of that money. There's been so much money taken out of the pockets of the hardworking people to support places like Israel and the United Nations and all of these groups that are attached to it. And their end goal has always been the same. The culling of the planet. The accusation that you're hurting the planet. So they're threatening you. Now, a lot of people get feared out when they get threatened. I never understood that. Somebody's going to threaten you, you better be prepared to stand your ground. And that's all we have to do is stand our ground, because it is our ground, because it's our boots on the ground. It is our earth. Our earth. Our lands. And everything that was ever built on these lands, we built. Our forefathers built. But no so-called government ever built anything. They're a bunch of weasels. They're the foxes and the weasels in the hen house. Our house. And we've been deceived and they've taken control of our house. And they've laid these phony rules and regulations on how we're to behave in our own house. And if we don't behave by their regulations in our house, then we will be punished. How stupid are we? Would you allow a stranger to come to your house and say, you know, I'm really hard up right at the minute and I could use some help? I don't have a problem with that. You got a place to stay? No, well, why don't you stay here till you get on your feet? That would be a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. But you come in my house and then you Shortly after you arrive in my house, start changing all the rules and regulations in my house to suit your likes and dislikes. Well, you've crossed the line. You've absolutely crossed the line. So you're going to have to get out of my house. And it's time that we booted all of these deceivers, these lecherous dogs, kick them out of our house. And our house is these lands. And we got to take them back. We have to change the psychological picture here. And we got to put things right. Or suffer the consequences. They tell you what they're going to do to you. They make no bones about it. So we really don't have much to argue about. We don't really have much to, this, well, they'll do whatever they want. Well, they want to cull the population. They want to take the future away from your children and your grandchildren. They want to take away your right from anything that's on your lands, and then they, through their trust, will send it out as they see adequate. And if you understand these people, they will make all of these false problems again, and that's the reason you can't have eggs this week, and that's the reason you can't have meat this week, and that's the reason you can't have milk next week, and this is the reason that you can't go to the, well, I don't recommend going to the doctor, but these are all the reasons why we have these shortages, okay? They control all of the resources, all of the economies, all of the food, all of the water, and so on and so forth. And they can create a crisis that doesn't exist anytime they want, shove it out in the media because the media is completely locked down, and convince people that there's been this whatever kind of problem, and therefore we will get food to you as soon as possible. Hopefully within the next 24 hours, which stretches into 36 hours, which stretches into 48 hours, which stretches into 72 hours, and pretty soon people start to fall over. And they'll put that down as an unfortunate incident. And they'll look for new ways to do things better. But the whole background program is to cull the population. The vaccines are there to cull the population. Monsanto is there to cull the population. And so on and so forth. Don't have to talk about the chemtrails. You don't have to be real smart to see what's going on. And you don't have to be that bloody smart to stand up and say no either. But if we don't stand up and say no, then we've sat down and said yes. And at that point, we have nothing to complain about. So we got to get a little more active, and we have to. I look at all this stuff as a good thing. I really truly do. We've been under 1,000 years of tyranny, and this is our opportunity to put that to bed once and for all. And so as far as I'm concerned, we're living in the most interesting times in a long, long time. And we should embrace that. There's no need to be fearful of it. Get excited about it. It's an exciting time. It's game on. Somebody's going to win this. And what we have is a handful of lunatics over in Paris. All of your professors in your universities are lunatics. All of your school teachers are lunatics. All of your preachers are lunatics. All of your politicians are lunatics. Okay? Because they wouldn't be in that position they're in if they hadn't been vetted. Okay? But they're all lunatics. They're all sociopaths and psychopaths. All of them. But even when you add all of those people up, they're very few compared to the rest of us. And they can be deprogrammed. Okay? I'm not saying that the teacher and the preacher are intrinsically evil. They're the useful idiots. Okay? Hoodwinking the useless eaters, so that those who contrived or conceived of this nonsense that's going on could have their way with us. So when I say that these people are lunatics, the teachers and the preachers and the politicians, they are lunatics. Okay? They're not of a right mind. And they need to have their minds made right, and the only way they can have their minds made right is to be deprogrammed, which means that you have to talk to them. You have to explain to them what they can't see. Now, they've been vetted into those positions that they're in, and they got there because they were flattered and their egos stroked. And they've been told what a wonderful job they're doing and all of this stuff. And they're too weak of mind not to understand what took place there. And they believe these people who are stroking their egos and handing them flattery. They believe what they're being told. Makes them feel good to be doing good, they think. When in fact they're doing the opposite of good. They're causing nothing but harm to everyone they speak to. Every action they take causes harm, and harm is against the law. So there's no need to get mad at a policeman or a preacher or a politician or a teacher. It is imperative that we speak to them, though. We have to be the teachers. We have to be the politicians. We have to be the preachers. We have to be the scientists. We have to be the professors. And we need to speak to those people who are implementing this nonsense at the local level, and we also need to talk to the local people to alert them to what is taking place right in front of their very freaking eyes that they cannot see. So those who can see, those who do see, have to step up to the plate. And that's what I got this down pretty simple now. I mean, keep talking, keep teaching, and keep shining the light. And learn to say no. That's really all that is required for us to set the ship right side up again, because we've been on an upside down boat for a very, very long time. We have not been floating around in reality. And there is a reality sitting there right here for us. And trust me, it's a much better reality than the unreality, the fiction that we've been living in all these centuries. It's a glorious, glorious time. And we need not be afraid of it. We need to embrace it. This is our opportunity to show our forefathers that we got what they went through to build these places, these so-called nations, the hardships that they endured, the phony wars they died in. And it's also an opportunity to give your children and your grandchildren a real future. And we all have that responsibility. And we need to step up to the plate. We need to get the kids away from the teachers, or we need to get to the teachers and explain to the teachers where they've been hoodwinked. Hand the teachers some real history. The teachers don't know what history is. They weren't taught history, just like you weren't taught history. we have a duty to get proper information to these people. So they go, well, wait a minute. How come I didn't know this? Because you're not supposed to know it, because your job is to implement the same education that you grew up in, which is a Prussian school system or education system, which produced human resources for the state. That's why you don't know any real history. And if you can't trust your history, then what else can you trust in the school system? Nothing is what you can trust in the school system. So we need the teachers to understand what it is that they're being asked to do. And that goes for everybody in our so-called societies. That goes for the judges, the lawyers, the police, the politicians, the useful idiots. Now, I don't know if anybody would want to be classed as a useful idiot. I mean, I would take that very seriously if I was being called a useful idiot or a useless eater. You know, why do they give the guys in the forces dog tags? You know, they're not man tags, they're dog tags. Okay, dogs of war. You know, or as the one guy said, I forget what his name is, when George Hunt did his video back in 92, I think it was, explaining a whole lot of this stuff. And he was pretty ticked off about it because he'd been in the forces, and when he heard that we were referred to as useless eaters, and in particular, the people in the forces were simply cannon fodder. And that's exactly what they are and have been. You can tell they don't mean anything to anybody who coerce them into going to these phony wars, because all you have to do is look at how the vets get treated when they get home. Like dogs. Kicked to the curb. So, you know, we got a whole huge problem here. But it's all quite fixable. And I'm really happy about that. It's very, very fixable. So, let me see here. I've got a few minutes left here. I'm just going to buzz through some of this stuff and see if I really recommend people go through this whole paper here. If you don't get what they're up to after reading this, you know, I know people don't like to read much, and I know that this is garbage stuff to read, but you need to read it. I mean, you really, really need to read it, because this is so in your face, what they're up to. You're gonna, I mean, we gotta get these lands back, man. We gotta start growing some food. You know, we gotta take control of our water. You know, in Ontario here, I think I haven't even read that article yet. I mean, I put this out to the government. I've had lots of talks with ministers or agencies about the fraud that they did to our electrical system here, and now it comes out that we got burned for $37 billion added to our hydro bills, and that for hydro that we didn't use, that was either sold off or the nuclear plants shut down, or continued to produce the electricity but didn't put it out on the grid. And they're guaranteed payment for everything they produce, the same as the renewable energy people. Regardless if it ever gets to where it's supposed to be going, we're on the hook for paying for it. That totaled up to $37 billion. And now people are going, what the hell is going on here? Well, it's a fraud. Simple as that. And that's what I mean. We're going to win because they push so hard, so fast lately that they are all of their scams and that are being exposed rapidly now. And they can't hide from that. And so they just keep moving forward like we don't notice. And they're going to keep moving forward till as long as they think we don't notice. But when you grab them by the scruff of the neck and pull them over and turn them around and look at them square in the eye and go, what the hell do you think you're doing? Then they're going to get nervous. They're not nervous yet. They believe that you are so dumbed down and the media has such a hold on your mind that they can do and get away with just about anything they want. Because we aren't actively participating, we aren't actively pushing back, and we aren't actively in their faces. They'll run. They will run. Because they're chicken shits, right? Those are the kind of people, they don't know how to do anything. This is all they know how to do is scheme and connive and conceive and conceptualize shit. Well, you're busy making a living, trying to keep a roof over your family's head. These schemers and deceivers, they got nothing really better to do. They got all the money they could ever want. Most of these people telling us that we have to decarbonize, have a bank of houses all around the world with their yachts and everything else, and their airplanes and the personal chauffeurs. So they're obviously not doing this by example. Because it doesn't have anything to do with carbon, it doesn't have anything to do with environment. But while we're busy running around trying to keep a roof over our heads, and people having to work harder and harder and harder just to keep the basics going, these people are sitting around conceptualizing how they're going to take us down. And that should make everybody very, very angry. You know, I put a thing up on my blog years and years and years ago, and I put up a little thing, there's a little header I found somewhere, and it just said, it struck me as true, and it's still true, that anger is a gift. And it is a gift. Used properly, it's also a very powerful tool. And, you know, if you ain't angry by now, well, you're going to be angry soon. And if you don't have the capacity to get angry, then you're no use to yourself or anybody else. You know, you've been demobilized by the propaganda that's been shoved in your head for so long. You hear people, well, I just want to be positive. You know, anger is a bad thing. You know, you should have anger management. All of that stuff was to diffuse your anger, of which you should be extremely angry. Anger is a wonderful motivator. And we got to get motivated. And we need to be angry. But not angry in a destructive fashion, angry in a constructive fashion, because everything has, two sides to it, everything. So you need to take the anger and use it in a positive way. And one of the most positive ways you can use the anger is basically to get in the face of your local officials. You know, hold a meeting with your local whatever group you may be attached to or not attached to, or just basically, strike up a conversation with somebody. It's not like it was, people. It's not like it was 10 years ago. If you would bring up some of this stuff, people would look like you did have a tin hat on. Okay, people have sharpened up a lot in the last 10 years. And it really amazes me. I'm so happy from 10 years ago. It looked like it was really going to be tough to overcome this. Not so much anymore. I'm in a pizza. We're working on a friend's house. I went up to the local store to get a pizza. And we got talking about some stuff, and the parents are running the pizza shop. Their kid was like 18. He's been informing them about Agenda 21 and the world government stuff, of which the parents didn't have any clue about. Now they're researching it. So, I'm running into this everywhere now. So the cat's out of the bag, and I don't want to. I have cats, and I don't even want to say this, but the cat's out of the bag. It's time to stuff the cat back in the bag and put the cat and the bag somewhere it's not going to get out again. Yeah, it's a totally different ball game now. I mean, a lot of people I knew from 10 years ago and now they're basically burned out. They work so hard, so long, and they're getting no positive feedback whatsoever. And these were some just wonderful people. I'm hoping they come back to work. Their knowledge base is so deep, but they got tired, man. They got burned out of talking and just getting spit on. But it's changed. It has changed immensely. And I'm proud of the people who have taken the time to do the research, and the people who have taken the time to listen to shows like this, and the people who have taken the time people have had to go through an awful lot of information to get a good handle on what we're facing here. And but it's spreading so fast now. It's really just, I love Mandel House. I always loved that statement of his. Even if 1 in a million figured this out, we got plausible deniability. Well, I'm sorry, folks, to those who contrived all of this nonsense. It's not 1 in a million, folks. And you ain't got no plausible deniability left. The shelf life of your propaganda and your bull crap is over. The best before date was reached some time ago. And you're still trying to paddle your sour milk at us, knowing that the best before date is long gone. And we're going to throw you and your sour milk out the door. And we're going to take your lands back. And it's going to be a pretty good, pretty interesting future. So, keep on top of this stuff. If you do get a chance to read through that paper that I was reading, and look at some of the other stuff. Check out the characters at play. John Kerry, Obama, our Prime Minister. For God's sakes, the mayor from my little township next door to this municipality, which is a little garbage hole, which just happens around everybody with windmills, is in Paris. The hell is this guy doing in Paris? Oh yeah, he's a Mason, and he's a warden, and he's a criminal. That's why he's in Paris. Not because he had anything positive to give anybody. He's a player, as all are all mayors. All mayors are players. All councils are players, and they're all implementing what this group of lunatics over in Paris is trying to push. And they put it all in an international law, which supersedes your law, and that has to be stopped as well. So that's just the way it shakes down. I didn't mean to spend anywhere near this amount of time today on this particular subject, but it's important. And we know that when this thing ends in Paris this time, they're making the big push to make sure they got the I's dotted and the T's crossed before they get out of there this time. And they will likely proclaim to the world that we've done it. We've saved the world. We've got the treaties in place and the documents in place, and now we can get on with saving the planet. Lunacy. Anyways, I hear music coming in. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope I'm not doing too preachy, but it is. And so, talk to you Tuesday night. I thank folks in the chat, there's accounts, there's the other listeners, people that read documents, and we shall return to and everybody take care. Have a great day. I see the sun's out here now. I'm about to get in it. Snow flies. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.